Hello everyone, welcome to another episode of In Depth with Dr. Karthik Raghunathan. In this episode, we will be discussing in detail about the basics of physician compensation, resources that help determine the compensation for a particular specialty in a region, and also useful tips for contract negotiations to ensure you're getting a fair salary. If you haven't subscribed to my channel yet, I would recommend you subscribe to the channel for fresh content on several videos pertaining to physicians and trainees. Moving on to the topic. So, believe it or not, compensation plays a huge role in someone deciding whether they are going to start working in a particular practice. But how well are we informed regarding physician compensation, especially people in residency and fellowship? There's not much education on this topic during training, so I decided to do this video to give more information on this. So moving on, so what determines compensation? Compensation depends on various factors such as location, the practice setting, whether it's an employed practice versus a private practice. As we very well know, academic practices pay less than non-academic practices. And especially if the location of the job is in a desirable location, it's unlikely that they're going to pay top dollar to get you into their practice. That being said, non-academic hospitals will pay you for the work that is done regardless of patient's insurance status. So that could help you relieve from having to worry about insurance, billing, coding, whether the patient's going to pay for their services or not. The hospital assumes all those risks on your behalf. However, in private practice, your salary is dependent on what's called collections, which is the bill that the patient has to pay from their pocket on top of what the insurance is paying. And on top of it, you also have what's called the overhead income, which is the salary for all the staff that work for your practice, directly related to patient care, management, billing, and coding. So your salary is basically total collections minus overhead income. When you talk to recruiters, they'll quote something called base salary. So what is base salary? This is the floor of your compensation for usually for the first 1 to 2 years that you will be paid bi-weekly or monthly depending on your contract. Most jobs, as I said, will give you a base salary for 1 to 2 years, after which you move on to one of the two different pathways depending on the practice setting. If you're an employed physician, you will move on to work RVU pattern, which is basically eat what you kill. So in other words, you will take compensation on the amount of work that you did in the previous quarter that will be divided by 3 and given to you every month. Versus in private practice, again, the compensation doesn't change except that you could potentially be a partner, so your income could be much larger than your base salary. So in your hospital-based settings, your salary is basically total work RVU multiplied by conversion factor for that specialty in that region. I'll upload a separate video on discussing about the basics of billing, coding, what is the CPT codes, and also what is work RVU and conversion factors. Another important focus on compensation is income potential. So this is the maximum compensation a physician can potentially make in that particular job in a given year. And this is usually quoted in a lot of job ads by recruiting firms such as Merit Hopkins. You can just open their website and put in your specialty, and they usually mention the income potential in pretty much all the listings that they quote. Moving on to what are the resources that are currently available to determine physician compensation. There are various resources or MGMA, AMGA, Sullivan, Carter, and Medscape compensation survey. Out of these, Medscape data is freely available for anyone who has a Medscape account, which is free in their website. You can go in and sign up for Medscape, and they have yearly compensation data for all the specialties, all the major specialties, I should say. However, I did find that the data was not completely accurate compared to what I would see in an MGMA or other databases. MGMA is by far the most widely used benchmark resource. MGMA stands for Medical Group Management Association, which is a professional organization of healthcare administrators and physician leaders. MGMA publishes yearly compensation data for all specialties. This is a proprietary data that is not publicly available. You can purchase this by going to their website and paying for that. A lot of hospital recruiters and recruiting agencies have this data available with them when they are posting job ads. So the states within United States are divided into 4 broad regions. So there's East, Midwest, South, and West region. MGMA has published a detailed video of all the different components of physician compensation that they report in their database. This is available in a YouTube link that I posted in the description of this video that you can take a look. But briefly, they talk about compensation depending on the actual setting where someone works. Is it academic versus non-academic? Compensation for medical directorship, compensation for call pay, and they also quote the starting salaries for someone coming fresh out of training in a particular specialty in a particular region. The data is reported as 25th percentile, 50th percentile, 75th percentile, and 90th percentile for that particular specialty in the particular region. Say for example, Charlie is a primary care physician. He works in Midwest. He makes 5,000 work RVUs per year, and for his specialty, the conversion factor is $50 per work RVU. So if you multiply 5,000 into 50, his base salary should be 250,000, and approximately, usually that is around the median for that region for primary care. So typical starting salary is anywhere between the 25th and 50th percentile for that specialty in that geographic region. There is room for negotiation of your base salary depending on the location and how badly they are in need for someone with your specialty. But remember, the higher your base salary, the higher the expectations of your job will be. So you will be expected to be really busy, so that could work in, affect your work-life balance. Something to consider before you negotiate very high base salaries in some practices. Moving on, so tips for compensation and negotiation. So what I would suggest is make sure you get that data for your specialty in that specific region to know what's your 25th percentile, what's the 50th percentile, and make sure your base salary is somewhere between 25th and 50th percentile, pretty much for all the specialties, I would say. If you can negotiate higher, well and good, but make sure it's at least within that 25th to 50th percentile, specifically for non-academic jobs. Also discuss about productivity bonus when you're discussing compensation. So what is productivity bonus? So we'll go back to the example Charlie. Charlie actually worked really hard this year. He made 7,000 work RVUs this particular year, but his base salary is only 250,000. So you multiply 7,000 by 50, which is his conversion factor, that will come up to compensation of 350,000. So at the end of the year, he would have been paid 250,000, but he actually worked extra, so he made an extra 100,000, which the practice should pay him above and beyond his base salary. So make sure you discuss the productivity bonus part when you are in a guaranteed period, which is usually within the first 1 to 2 years, so that if you do work hard, make sure you get that extra income in your bank account. Also discuss the miscellaneous components of compensation, such as call pay, CME allowance, compensation for any administrative task that you're going to be doing. Make sure you're going to get compensated for that. I would strongly suggest everyone use a contract attorney, especially when you're signing up for your first job. to make sure someone with experience is looking into all the terms and conditions in your contract and ensure that there's no prohibitive clause that might come back to bite you in a later time. Also remember, contract attorneys can do negotiations on your behalf with the hospital's recruiters. So if you don't feel comfortable doing the contract negotiations, they can help do it for you, including your compensation data. Last but not least, if a practice is paying you a very high salary, there's usually a reason for that. This I learned from my experience of interviewing in different places. Anywhere, if you hear a very high salary compared to what you hear in other areas, there is something of an issue that you should really closely look into it. Maybe the location is very remote, or the practice support is terrible, or they have problems retaining physicians because of bad administrative support. Make sure you look into these before you sign into the contract. So that's all the tips regarding compensation negotiations. Make sure you know your worth and what you're asking for is a fair salary for your specialty. A lot of people regret not doing contract negotiations properly, thereby leaving thousands of dollars on the table. Remember, once you sign the contract, it's there, and so you can just go back and change it after you and the hospital both have signed into the contract. Make sure you negotiate it properly before you sign them. Be informed and stay informed. Please share this video with your friends and peers. If you like this content, subscribe to our channel for more of these videos that I'll be putting up in the near future. I also look forward to your comments and any suggestions that you can post below this video. Thank you so much for your time.